Taiwan sits only about 160 kilometers from the coast of mainland China. On a map, the distance looks small enough to cross in just a few hours. But politically, the gap between them may be one of the most dangerous divides in world history. China claims Taiwan is part of its territory. Taiwan, meanwhile, operates with its own government, military, elections, passport system, and economy. It functions like an independent country, even though most nations avoid officially recognizing it as one. And that contradiction has created a geopolitical crisis that has lasted for more than 70 years. Today, Chinese fighter jets regularly enter air defense zones near Taiwan. Warships move through the Taiwan Strait. The United States continues supplying Taiwan with weapons while warning Beijing against military action. At the same time, Taiwan sits at the center of the global technology industry, producing many of the advanced semiconductors that power the modern world. Which means a conflict over this small island would not stay local for long. So how did the world end up with two governments, both connected to China? Emergence of the two Chinas. To understand the conflict over Taiwan, you have to go back more than a century. In 1912, China's Qing dynasty collapsed after years of internal unrest and foreign pressure. In its place came the Republic of China, or ROC, which became the new government of China. But stability did not last long. Warlords fought for power, the country fractured politically, and by the 1920s, a larger struggle had begun: the Chinese Civil War. On one side was the Chinese Nationalist Party, led by Chiang Kai-shek. On the other was the Chinese Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong. For decades, the two sides fought for control of China, while also resisting the Japanese invasion during World War II. By the late 1940s, the Communists had gained the upper hand. In 1949, Mao Zedong declared the creation of the People's Republic of China in Beijing after defeating the nationalists on the mainland. Chiang Kai-shek and roughly 2 million supporters retreated to Taiwan, where the Republic of China government survived. And that created the foundation for today's crisis. Two governments now existed, both claiming to be the legitimate government of China. The People's Republic of China controlled the mainland. The Republic of China controlled Taiwan. For years, many countries still recognized the government in Taiwan as the real China. But over time, most shifted diplomatic recognition to Beijing, especially after the People's Republic of China took China's seat at the United Nations in 1971. Yet Taiwan never disappeared politically. It continued operating with its own government, military, and institutions, while Beijing insisted the island would eventually reunify with the mainland. For decades, the question was not whether Taiwan was independent. The question was, which government represented China? Why China wants Taiwan? For China's leadership, Taiwan is not simply an island nearby. It is one of the most politically sensitive issues in the country's modern history. Beijing views Taiwan as unfinished business from the Chinese Civil War. From the perspective of the Chinese Communist Party, the conflict never truly ended in 1949 because the nationalist government survived after retreating to Taiwan. That is why China continues promoting the One China principle, the idea that there is only one China and Taiwan is part of it. This position is central to the Communist Party's legitimacy. Chinese leaders have repeatedly argued that national reunification is necessary to restore China's historical unity after what Beijing calls the Century of Humiliation, a period marked by foreign invasion, internal collapse, and territorial losses. Under President Xi Jinping, this idea became tied directly to his vision of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. And in that vision, Taiwan cannot remain permanently separate. For Beijing, Taiwan is not just territory, it is legitimacy. There is also a major strategic reason behind China's position. Taiwan sits along what military analysts call the first island chain, a line of territories stretching from Japan to the Philippines that limits China's direct access to the Pacific Ocean. As long as Taiwan remains outside Beijing's control and maintains close ties with the United States, China sees American influence sitting directly off its coastline. That is why Taiwan has become more than a political dispute. For China, it represents history, security, nationalism, and global power all at the same time. The resistance of Taiwan. Over the decades, Taiwan developed into something very different from mainland China. While the People's Republic of China remained under one-party Communist Party rule, Taiwan gradually transformed into a democratic society with competitive elections, independent media, and open political debate. Martial law in Taiwan ended in the late 1980s, and over time the island developed its own political identity, separate from the mainland. That identity shift is especially visible among younger generations. Polls in recent years have shown that many people in Taiwan identify primarily as Taiwanese rather than Chinese, a major change from earlier decades when cultural ties to mainland China were stronger. For many citizens, Taiwan is no longer viewed as a temporary government waiting to reclaim China. It is viewed as their home, their political system, and their future. Events in Hong Kong also intensified those feelings. When Beijing imposed a national security law on Hong Kong in 2020, after years of protests, many people in Taiwan saw it as a warning about what closer political control from China could eventually look like. Support for reunification remained extremely low, especially among younger voters. Taiwan's economic success also strengthened its position internationally. Despite its small size, the island became one of the world's most important technology centers, particularly in semiconductor manufacturing. Today, many people in Taiwan believe preserving their democratic system matters more than ever, and that growing sense of identity is one reason the conflict with China has become increasingly difficult to resolve peacefully. Why the conflict is escalating now. In recent years, the tension between China and Taiwan has intensified dramatically. Almost every month now, Chinese fighter jets and military aircraft enter Taiwan's air defense identification zone, forcing Taiwan's military to respond repeatedly. Beijing has also increased large-scale military drills around the island, including exercises that simulate blockades, missile strikes, and amphibious assault operations. At the same time, China's navy has expanded rapidly. The country now possesses one of the world's largest naval forces, and Beijing has invested heavily in missiles, aircraft carriers, cyber warfare, and long-range military capabilities designed to challenge American influence in the Pacific. For many analysts, the message is clear. China wants the ability to pressure Taiwan militarily if necessary. But military power is only part of the story. The broader rivalry between the United States and China has also pushed Taiwan closer to the center of global politics. Washington has strengthened military cooperation with allies in the Indo-Pacific, while Beijing increasingly views American support for Taiwan as an attempt to contain China's rise. Taiwan's own elections added more pressure. In recent years, Taiwanese voters repeatedly supported leaders who favor maintaining Taiwan's separate political system and resisting closer control from Beijing. From China's perspective, this creates a dangerous long-term trend. The longer Taiwan remains politically separate, the harder peaceful reunification may become. Then there is the issue of technology. Taiwan produces many of the world's most advanced semiconductors, giving the island enormous strategic importance. Control over these supply chains could influence everything from smartphones and artificial intelligence to advanced weapon systems. And above all of this stands Xi Jinping. Under his leadership, reunification with Taiwan became increasingly tied to China's national identity and future power. Chinese officials still publicly promote peaceful reunification, But many observers believe Beijing fears time may be working against it, which means the pressure surrounding Taiwan is no longer decreasing. It is slowly building. Why the US is involved? The United States officially recognizes the government in Beijing as the government of China. But at the same time, it continues supporting Taiwan militarily. That contradiction sits at the center of one of the most delicate geopolitical strategies in the world. In 1979, after switching diplomatic recognition from Taipei to Beijing, the United States passed the Taiwan Relations Act. The law did not formally recognize Taiwan as an independent country, but it committed Washington to helping Taiwan maintain its ability to defend itself. Since then, the United States has continued selling weapons to Taiwan, including missiles, fighter aircraft, naval systems, and air defense technology. But the US has also avoided giving a completely clear answer about whether it would directly defend Taiwan in a war. This policy became known as strategic ambiguity. The idea is to discourage both sides from taking extreme action. China is meant to remain uncertain about possible American military intervention, while Taiwan is discouraged from formally declaring independence under the assumption of guaranteed US protection. Beyond politics, the United States has major strategic reasons for staying involved. Taiwan sits in a critical position in the Pacific, near key shipping routes, and American allies like Japan and South Korea. If China gained control over Taiwan, Beijing's military reach into the Pacific would expand significantly, weakening the current balance of power in the region. There is also the economic factor. Taiwan produces a large share of the world's advanced semiconductors, including the high-end chips used in smartphones, artificial intelligence systems, military technology, and global manufacturing. A conflict involving Taiwan could disrupt supply chains across the entire global economy. For Washington, the issue is no longer only about Taiwan itself. It is about preventing a single power from dominating one of the world's most strategically important regions. Why Taiwan matters to the world. Taiwan matters to the world for one major reason: semiconductors. The island is home to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, better known as TSMC, the world's most advanced chip maker. These tiny semiconductor chips power almost everything in modern life, including smartphones, data centers, artificial intelligence systems, cars, medical equipment, satellites, and advanced military technology. And Taiwan produces a massive share of them. Many of the world's most advanced chips are manufactured on this single island. That means global industries, from Silicon Valley tech companies to defense contractors and automobile manufacturers, depend heavily on Taiwan's semiconductor supply chain. A disruption would affect far more than consumer electronics. Modern fighter jets, missile systems, AI infrastructure, cloud computing, and communication networks all rely on advanced semiconductors. During the COVID-19 pandemic, smaller chip shortages already caused production delays across multiple industries. A major conflict involving Taiwan could trigger something far more severe. A war over Taiwan would not stay in Taiwan. It could disrupt global trade routes, destabilize financial markets, damage supply chains, and create economic shockwaves across the world economy. Some analysts believe a prolonged conflict in the Taiwan Strait could become one of the most expensive geopolitical crises in modern history. That is why governments far beyond Asia are paying attention. Taiwan may be small geographically, but its role in the global economy makes it one of the most strategically important places on Earth. Could China actually invade Taiwan? Could China actually invade Taiwan? Technically, yes. But carrying out a full invasion would be one of the most difficult military operations in modern history. The Taiwan Strait is roughly 160 kilometers wide, and any large-scale assault would require China to transport massive numbers of troops, vehicles, supplies, and equipment across open water while facing Taiwanese defenses. Amphibious invasions are extremely complex, even under ideal conditions, and Taiwan spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. Then, there is the uncertainty of international response. The United States has never clearly stated whether it would directly intervene militarily if China attacked Taiwan. But American forces operate heavily throughout the Pacific, and allies like Japan could also become involved. Any conflict would risk drawing multiple major powers into the same war, including nuclear-armed states. The economic consequences would also be enormous. A military conflict in the Taiwan Strait could disrupt global trade routes and semiconductor production almost immediately, sending shockwaves through the world economy. Because of those risks, many analysts believe China may prefer pressure tactics short of outright invasion. That could include cyber attacks, economic coercion, military intimidation, or even a blockade designed to isolate Taiwan without launching a full amphibious assault. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes the situation so dangerous. Nobody knows where the red line actually is. Finally, Taiwan is a small island, with a population far smaller than China's. But the conflict surrounding it has become one of the most dangerous geopolitical tensions in the modern world. For China, Taiwan represents national unity, political legitimacy, and the end of a civil war that never truly concluded. For Taiwan, the issue is tied to democracy, identity, and the right to determine its own future. And for the United States, Taiwan became part of a much larger struggle over power and influence in the Indo-Pacific. At the same time, the global economy remains deeply connected to the island through trade routes, technology, and semiconductor production. That is why the world keeps watching the Taiwan Strait so closely, because the tension is no longer only about Taiwan itself. It is about the future balance of power between China and the United States in an increasingly unstable world. Taiwan may be a small island, but the decisions made around it could shape the balance of global power for decades.